It's 1955. The sun beats down on the cracked sidewalks of San Juan, Puerto Rico. Inside a small crowded clinic, Maria, a 28-year-old mother of 3, swallows a tiny pill handed to her by a nurse. She doesn't know its name. She doesn't know it's experimental. All she knows is that they say it might stop her from getting pregnant again. What Maria doesn't realize is that she's part of something much bigger. She's one of hundreds of poor Puerto Rican women being used to test a drug that will go on to reshape the modern world. Behind that pill is a wealthy widow with millions to spare, a radical nurse with a vision, a Catholic doctor, and a biologist with no medical license. It would become one of the most influential pills in history, held by some, hidden by others. To understand how Maria ended up swallowing that experimental pill, we need to go back decades earlier. You see, the whole contraceptive pill movement actually started in the 1920s by a woman known as Margaret Sanger. She was in her 40s at the time, so you see, it's never too late to follow your dreams. Margaret was a great feminist of her time, but a lot of people who claim to know her believe that her reason for supporting the contraceptive pill movement was suspicious. They believed she was a racist and a classist who felt like disadvantaged populations like the poor, people with disabilities, and black people shouldn't be allowed to reproduce. Her reasoning was that, why would you bring a child into this world when you can't take care of it? Others believed she was just a plain old feminist who believed women should have control of their bodies. Her motives aside, I bet we can all agree that contraceptive pills weren't a bad idea. They give women the right to do what they want with their bodies. It's their bodies after all. Plus, they help treat menstrual irregularities and lots of other conditions. But while Margaret had this great plan, she couldn't pull it off on her own. She needed support, and this is where her sister and a friend come in. Her sister helped in some aspects, but one of the major contributors to the creation of the birth control pill was her friend, Kate McCormick. So Kate was a widow who had recently lost her millionaire husband and was left with abundant wealth. So Margaret reached out to her, and Kate was convinced. She sponsored the whole movement. According to research, Kate spent about $2 million supporting the movement. That's $18 million today. Imagine having that amount lying around and deciding to invest it in just because it felt right. Must be nice. Even though they had the money and willpower, they couldn't pull it off alone. So Margaret reached out to Dr. Pincus, a biologist who was working on birth control pills. Hey Pincus, my homegirl and I are interested in what you're doing. What do you say about us sponsoring your research? And Pincus was like, let's get on with it. And that was how they came about Enovid, the first birth control pill. This pill had about 10 times more progesterone than the contraceptive pills of today, and also a considerable higher amount of estrogen. Following the creation of the pill, they needed to carry out clinical trials, and that's where Dr. Rock came into the picture. He was a Catholic doctor situated in Massachusetts. He had a clinic where women visited, which is why he was the perfect person for the clinical trial. However, there was a law against handing out contraceptive pills in Massachusetts, which posed a challenge to the clinical trial. This challenge made them begin the hunt for the perfect population where the drugs would be tried. They thought about different locations like the US, Mexico, and China, but all these places didn't fit perfectly. They needed to do a trial that would last about 3 years, and they needed a population where the women would remain in the same location for that amount of time, and that's how they settled on Puerto Rico. The population of women were poor, there were no laws protecting them from birth control experiments, and they already had an idea about birth control because they used the back of a species of yam to prevent pregnancy. So it wasn't too hard to convince these women to take part in the trial. They saw it as a better option than their trial and error method they were already practicing with the yam back. And that was how the experiments began, with lots of side effects that were dismissed. These side effects led to lots of deaths. But Maria we talked about at the beginning of the story, and women like her weren't the only ones who died for birth control throughout history. Lots of other women died. To learn about all the other women who died for this movement, let's jump back to 1916. So Margaret Sanger's sister, Ethel Ben, who helped open America's first birth control clinic in Brooklyn. Within 10 days, police raided the place. While Margaret became famous, few remember Ethel, who went on a hunger strike in prison and was brutally force-fed. Though she didn't die immediately, her health never recovered from the ordeal. While researching this story, a thought popped into my head. What drove women to risk everything, even their lives, to prevent pregnancy? And I found my answer. You see, before modern contraception, the average woman could expect to bear 7 children. For poor women, this meant being trapped in an endless circle that often ended in early death from exhaustion, complications, or desperate measures to end unwanted pregnancies. Hospital wards in the pre-birth control era had entire sections reserved for women suffering from botched, self-induced abortions. In the 1930s, approximately 15,000 women died each year in America alone from these procedures. Their deaths were quiet and entirely preventable. But the dangers women faced to prevent pregnancy weren't only confined to experimental pills. Let's fast forward to 1970s when the Dalkon Shield was created. It was an intrauterine device that promised worry-free contraception but delivered infection, infertility, and for at least 18 women, deaths from sepsis. The manufacturer, A.H. Robbins Company, had rushed it to market without adequate testing. When problems emerged, they buried the evidence for years. One victim was Connie Weaver, a 28-year-old mother of 2. After her Dalkon Shield perforated her uterus, bacteria spread through her bloodstream. She died within days, leaving behind young children and a husband who would spend the next decade fighting for justice. The system failed her twice, her husband would say. First by giving her something dangerous, then by pretending it wasn't. These aren't just historical issues, they continue today. So Erica Langer was 24 years old when she collapsed on Thanksgiving Day in 2011. The cause? Blood clots that were linked to her NuvaRing contraceptive device. As she lay dying in the hospital, the doctor asked her mother a strange question. Was your daughter using birth control? Erica's mother didn't understand the significance of the question the doctor asked until months later when she discovered that the manufacturer, Merck, knew about the elevated risk of blood clots but had worked to keep this information from being prominently disclosed. Modern contraceptives are generally much safer than the first pills created, and the pills are certainly safer than unwanted pregnancy for most women. But certain factors dramatically increase the risks. Factors like age, over 35, smoking, high blood pressure, migraines with aura, and certain genetic factors related to blood clotting that many women don't even know they have. Yet, in surveys, nearly 40% of women report that their doctors never discussed these specific risk factors with them in detail. The pattern is disturbing. Women report concerning symptoms, medical professionals dismiss them, and pharmaceutical companies minimize risks until the evidence becomes impossible to ignore. A recent example is Essure, a permanent birth control device implanted in the fallopian tubes. For years, women reported severe pain, autoimmune responses, and device migration. The manufacturer insisted these were isolated incidents. It took thousands of complaints before the FDA finally removed it from the market in 2018. By then, at least 8 women had died. One was Christiana Tweed, a 45-year-old mother of 3 who died after her Essure device perforated her uterus and caused a massive infection. Her last Facebook post read, "Please take me seriously this time," directed at the doctor who repeatedly dismissed her pain. Today's birth control options are dramatically safer than any point in history. Low-dose formulations, better screening for risk factors, and more options mean fewer women die for the right to control their fertility. But what should we make of those who did? If we look at Maria in Puerto Rico clinic, Ethel Ben in her prison cell, Connie with her Dalkon Shield, Erica with her NuvaRing, and all the unnamed women who died seeking contraception, their stories share a common thread. They were often poor, marginalized, or powerless. Their symptoms were dismissed, their deaths were minimized or ignored entirely, and their sacrifice paved the way for freedoms that millions now take for granted. The freedom to control one's own reproduction wasn't given, it was purchased at an extraordinary cost, a cost paid disproportionately by women who had the least power to demand better. As we continue to develop new contraceptive methods and expand access worldwide, we must remember these women not as statistics or acceptable losses, but as individuals whose lives mattered and whose deaths should inform how we approach reproductive health going forward. Maria swallowed that pill in Puerto Rico nearly 70 years ago, believing it would give her control over her future. She died for that belief. The least we can do is make sure her sacrifice and the sacrifices of countless others weren't in vain. Do you think these unsung heroes who died to ensure contraceptives come to be should be celebrated? Let me know in the comment section. And if you found this video interesting, don't forget to like and subscribe for more medical history that might just change how you see the world today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.